let's jump right into this explainer. So if you've been following Steve Chandler's phenomenal book, 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself, Change Your Life Forever, you already know he packs a serious punch. But chapter 28, well, it introduces a concept that literally flips everything we think we know about communication completely on its head. I mean, think about it. We usually treat listening as this, passive activity. It's basically a little mental break while the other person just talks at us, right? Well, Chandler frames it entirely differently. He argues that trying interactive listening is actually this incredibly profound tool for personal motivation. It's an everyday creativity builder. It literally has the power to fundamentally change how you generate energy and how you interact with the world around you. So let's explore how we can actually build this into our daily lives.
Let me ask you a direct question. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where you feel like you already know exactly what the other person is going to say before they even open their mouth? Yeah, you know that deeply familiar feeling? Maybe you're talking to a certain, let's say, highly predictable colleague at work. Or maybe it's that one family member. They start a sentence and boom, your brain instantly auto-completes the whole thing for them. And what happens? You start to physically zone out. Your eyes kind of glaze over just a little bit, and you find yourself doing that rhythmic nodding, totally, utterly checked out of the moment. Come on, it happens to all of us. But what's actually going on in our minds when we slip into that state?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The mental laziness trap.
So Chandler calls this phenomenon mental laziness, and he defines it as the lowering of our own consciousness level that sets in when we assume we already know what a business associate or family member is going to say. Now, I really want to linger on that specific phrase for a second, the lowering of our own consciousness level. Look, in Chandler's framework, keeping yourself motivated requires high consciousness. It requires alertness. By simply assuming what someone is about to say, we are literally self-sabotaging our own motivation. We're hitting the off switch on our brain's processing power. You aren't just taking a harmless little mental break or, just being a bit bored. You are actively shutting down your own awareness. You're entering the state of mental slumber right smack in the middle of your productive day.
And what exactly does that mental slumber sound like? Well, it usually sounds like a really hollow, exactly, or a completely vacant, there you go. We all use these, don't we? These are those specific, totally meaningless filler words we use to punctuate what Chandler perfectly describes as our sleepy listening. We just sit there throwing out an empty, exactly, while we passively suffer through other people's monologues. We trick ourselves into thinking we're saving mental energy by zoning out and just playing polite. But the reality? Passive suffering is actually incredibly exhausting. It completely drains our batteries. We aren't truly listening at all, are we? We're just sleepwalking through the entire interaction.
Moving on to Section 2, Escaping Sleepy Listening. We absolutely need a fundamental shift here.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why. When we compare these two approaches side by side, the difference in our own energy levels is just stark. On the passive side, you've got sleepy listening, tossing out meaningless words, and passively suffering. Like we said, it's draining. But look at the interactive approach. Here, we use thoughtful questions to reach a much higher state of consciousness. Chandler makes this fascinating point. He says using interactivity as a creativity builder shouldn't just be restricted to computer games or chat rooms. Think about it. We demand high levels of interactivity from our digital lives to keep our brains stimulated, yet we just settle for these passive, mind-numbing monologues in real life? No way! When we shift from passive to interactive with the people around us, we don't just endure the conversation, we actively build it, and doing that generates immediate, real energy.
Which brings us to Section 3, Creating Life Through Listening.
Now, let me read this incredibly powerful quote by the writer Brenda Euland. When we are listened to, it creates us, makes us unfold and expand. Ideas actually begin to grow within us and come to life. Wow! Now, you might be wondering, why on earth does Chandler include this highly philosophical quote in a purely practical book about motivating yourself? Well, he uses it to prove a point. Listening isn't just basic data processing, it's an actual act of creation. When you truly, deeply listen, you aren't just a sponge taking things in, you are actively generating energy.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the breakdown of how it works. Conscious listening literally creates us. It makes us unfold and expand. Ideas begin to grow and they come to life. Your conscious listening acts as a direct catalyst for someone else's ideas. But here is the real secret. The core reason why this motivates you. Acting as a catalyst for their ideas requires active, intense mental engagement from you. By finally waking up from your mental laziness and truly interacting, you give the person in front of you the space to expand their thoughts, which in turn keeps your own brain incredibly sharp and motivated. It's a feedback loop. That active engagement is the exact fuel you need to keep your own creative fires burning strong all day long.
Section 4. Elevating your experience. Let's talk about how this sparks real personal growth.
So the absolutely crucial point here is how we actually implement this stuff in the real world. First, you have to become fully conscious of the principle. You need to recognize that exact physical and mental moment when you feel yourself slipping into sleepy listening. Second, stop using meaningless phrases. Catch yourself right before you mumble another empty "exactly" or "yeah, true." Just stop. And third, ask thoughtful questions. Instead of just doing the rhythmic nod, pivot. Ask something like, "So what led you to that conclusion?" Or "How did you actually feel when that happened?" Chandler stresses that the more thoughtful our questions are, the more interactive the conversations become. This is the clear, actionable progression for turning a totally draining, predictable monologue into this vibrant tool that immediately motivates you.
Which brings us to a final provocative thought to leave you with. What thoughtful question will you ask in your very next conversation? Chapter 28 of Chandler's book, it really isn't just basic advice on how to be a polite communicator. It is a literal life hack for endless self-motivation. So the next time you find yourself cornered by that predictable business associate or that one family member, don't just passively suffer through it. Seize the opportunity. Be interactive. Ask a real, truly thoughtful question. Listen to create. And just watch how it elevates not only them, but your own daily energy.